Yay.
Welcome to You're On in 5, The Art of Understudying.
The only podcast to celebrate the work of actors in understudy roles.
Understudying demands tons of preparation with minimal rehearsal.
Or sometimes none at all.
But it can end in triumphant glory.
In these conversations, we will amplify the diverse voices of actors who have understudied. We want to hear about the actor's technique, experience, and journey.
As well as whatever's on our mind that day. Hey, everybody. It's your co-host, Elana Elise, and you might know me as Chicago's karaoke queen. I have a karaoke machine, 2 microphones, a microphone stand, a stand for my laptop, and a stand for the speaker.
Yes. I am your other co-host, Scott Sava. You might know me from just going to Trader Joe's about once a week or so over here in Lincoln Park. Our guest today is, well, Jean Marie, we've run out of theatrical credits for ourselves at this point. So that's why we're doing it like that. You might know Jean Marie from the recent production of Uncle Vanya by the New American Theater Company. Welcome to the show, Jean Marie.
Welcome.
Hey.
We will start with our first question we always start with, and that is, tell us about your first understudy gig.
Hey, yeah. My first understudy gig was with Jackalope Theater. So, of course, it was a new play because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really great beginning to my understudy career, I guess, because they were very open about having us all attend as many rehearsals as we wanted to. And there was a quote understudy performance just for the members of the theater, not like an open performance for audience members. But so it did give me a chance to like get on stage and actually do the part, which was much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
The particular play was a little tricky because there were several scenes where the dialogue had a very similar beginning or a similar cue line, and it was easy to like skip ahead or go back accidentally.
Yeah.
So that was one of the challenges that I noted from that particular experience.
Wow. That's amazing. So in addition to you all being in rehearsal with the principals, did you also have understudy rehearsals specifically?
Yeah, we had a couple of understudy rehearsals. It was kind of difficult to get everybody's schedules to coordinate.
Mm.
But one thing I noticed the other understudies doing was when we would come to watch performance or like a run through or something, they'd record it on their phones. So they'd have a copy to refer back to when they were like working on it on their own, which I'd never seen anyone else do. And I thought that was kind of brilliant.
Yeah, I've done that for segments of a show, like just like something I found particularly difficult because it's also hard for me to learn lines like along with, like that's weird. But I've seen people do that too.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to go on aside from the understudy performance?
No, not with that one. There were my third understudy performance gig. I did have to go on, but I knew ahead of time that I was going to go on. It was I was understudying a person who quite often does like TV or independent film stuff, and she had a gig that she knew about ahead of time, so I could prepare for that.
Yeah.
Much better than if I got like the call at 5 minutes to kind of
I
thing.
see. So there was Jackalope and there was that one. There's one in the middle.
Uh-huh.
Tell us about that one.
Oh, that was really interesting. That was with Steep Theater, and it was a play that was basically three two-person scenes, and the combination of people was different in each scene. It was not like you followed one character through those three scenes. So they were almost like little independent one-act plays. And the person that I worked with in the scene that I was in as an understudy, he actually went on to LA. He was actually a comedian, like a stand-up comedian. And that was his first time like being in an actual play. So it was really interesting to watch him sort of figure that out. And then he went
Yeah.
to LA and he's like doing writing on various comedy shows.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was nice to get to know someone who ended up somewhat famous, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how did that process at Steep differ from at Jackalope? Like what was that
Mhm.
experience like overall?
Well, it was much more intense in that we were rehearsing just a short piece of the play, and so the rehearsals could be fairly independent
Mhm.
of whatever the other understudies' schedules were. There wasn't a lot of time where we would all be in the same room together, except towards the end when we started doing more run through kind of rehearsals, but we were able to rehearse individually also up until that point. So that made me feel like real comfortable in what I was doing because I'd had a lot of rehearsal. Um,
Nice. And you felt like you would have been ready if you had
oh,
any.
yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
Yeah. Jean Marie, I've known you for almost at least 10 years now or so. And I'm noticing that like these understudy gigs, Jackalope and Steep, they're not like going far back. When did you start acting?
Well, I have a degree, a Master of Arts in acting. So
Mhm.
when I did it in college, of
Yeah.
course, and then when we first moved to Chicago, I was in a lot of stuff.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then we had a daughter,
That'll do
and
it.
between that and my regular day job, which is um, a 9 to 5 kind of thing, it's not really flexible.
Mm.
I sort of dropped out of acting for a while. Um, and then just, I think like the $10 house that we were in together was like
Hmm.
only my third show. Or, oh, no, only my second show, I think, back after taking that
Mm.
long hiatus. So
Yeah.
there's a big break in the middle. So even though I'm in my 60s, I haven't been actually acting for 40 years. There was a
Right.
there was a break.
I
Yeah. Oh, that's
see.
so interesting. You didn't do any understudy gigs in your like the
Previous,
beginning of your career.
no,
Yeah. Was
no,
that by choice or was that
it just didn't happen that way.
yeah, that's cool.
Um, yeah, but then, when I was coming back, I knew that I needed some brush up time and I
Hmm.
needed to get to know the people in the different theater companies at that time.
Hmm.
So I was actually looking for understudy work at that point, just to sort of freshen up and like I said, get to know some of the people involved.
Mm.
That's interesting. So in your approach, like, because usually, sometimes there's like auditions and then there are auditions for understudying, right? But most
Mhm.
of the times it's auditions and you indicate you are interested. Was there something that you did to specifically communicate that you were interested in understudying primarily?
Think I just mostly would check the box that said, "Are you willing?" But
Yeah.
I was happy to get those understudy positions, and I think that after I'd done a couple, it became known
Hmm.
that Jean Marie is a pretty decent understudy, and she doesn't mind doing it, and she's a good person to have in the room, so you might want to consider. Um, which feels a little bit like bragging, but um, maybe
Hey,
that was it.
you put in the
Well,
work that you earned
right.
that. Yeah.
And it's twofold though, right? Because you run the risk of being pigeonholed into
Hmm.
getting that call versus
Hmm.
the principal. But it's nice, absolutely, to be considered reliable. And as we have more exposure on the role of the understudy being an actor's job and not a lesser job,
Hmm.
right? It's important to have that kind of trust, right? Because like you don't want to be chosen because like you don't mind doing it, right? You want to be chosen because they believe that you can come through,
Right.
if you need it. And so,
And it's funny how many people, when they hear about either me being an understudy at that point in the show that they're in or having done understudy work before, they say like, "Oh, I could never do that. Oh, that's too scary to have that potential of having to go on without as much preparation as I'm used to," and I never felt that way about it really.
Yeah.
I would say early on when I started back again and started getting the understudy gigs that I just want to be in the room. Like my favorite part is rehearsing or being in the rehearsal room with people and seeing the growth of characters and seeing the director um, how they handle things and what their vision is. So I never looked at it as a lesser role for sure.
Yeah.
And I never really thought of it as being that hard for some reason. I
Hmm.
guess I have a pretty good memory, and getting the lines down was never a problem for me.
Hmm.
So I was more comfortable maybe than some people would be being asked to be an understudy.
Mm.
Sure. Have you done multiple tracks for single show as an understudy?
Just once, yeah. I was in one of the Sherlock Holmes female Sherlock Holmes, Miss Holmes Returns over at Lifeline Theater.
Hmm.
And in that show, I covered three different tracks, which was fun during rehearsals because I'd come in as one character and go off stage and come back in as a different character. And there was like one scene where two of them were on stage at the same time. And so I kind of like do both of the lines
Yeah.
so the other actors could have their opportunity to work as well, you know.
Yeah. Did you find that challenging or did you find it as smooth as when you just have a single arc?
It was it was okay because they were very different characters, so it was easy to keep their mannerisms and their lines and such separate.
Mm.
And they were none of them were very big characters. So they'd be someone who'd be in a scene for like half a page or be in one or two scenes in the whole play. So it didn't feel like a burden to have all of those things in my brain at the same time.
Awesome.
Did you ever have to go on for that show?
No, I did not.
Okay.
The
I'm disappointed too. There was just a hint of disappointment. And
it would have been fun for sure.
yeah.
How did you keep like the characters straight for like which track you would be on? Like did you would you run through the show like through one track and then
Oh,
run
on
through
my
it with
own?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, on my own, like with my husband as my compatriot in
Hmm.
running lines, I would do one full track and then come back and do another. But in the actual understudy rehearsals, I'd have to kind of jump back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. It is pretty convenient to have Robert as your husband.
Yes, it is. It definitely is.
Yeah,
And it's convenient for him too because I reciprocate.
definitely.
Perfect.
Yeah. Was there any like particularly difficult understudy role that you took on that you'd like to talk
Um,
about?
I had one experience fairly recently with factory theater
Uh-huh.
where I was not cast as the understudy. My husband was in the play, and I
Mm.
happened to go and see it on opening night, of course. And I had just closed an understudy gig as it was an Irish play, so I kind of had the Irish accent under my belt a little bit, kind of
Hmm.
fresh. And this particular play was also a play where Irish people were in it.
Yeah.
So it turned out that one of the actresses uh, came down with COVID, like right after opening night, tested positive. So they called in their the understudy to have a rehearsal before that night's performance, and she was totally unprepared and very unprofessional. And unfortunately, they parted ways with her that day. So then the director's like, okay, now what? And Rob happened to say, well, maybe Jean Marie could step in. And so I got the script like at 8 o'clock that night, and I was in understudy rehearsal at 3 o'clock the next afternoon. Oh, sorry, I've been corrected. It was actually the understudy rehearsal was at noon. The performance was at 3.
Ah.
So that yeah, I performed twice before she was able to come back in. And the first time I did go on with script in hand, but I hardly ever referred to it.
Mm.
Um, and then the second show, I didn't need the script. So Um, Learning the lines
Yes.
between 8 p.m. and noon the next day was a little bit of a challenge, but um, I was able to do it. So thank goodness.
Ah, love that. Came through.
Yeah.
Ah, and kudos to him for thinking, like, let's call my wife. She got this. You know,
Yeah. Right.
I love that.
It's nice to
Um,
have someone who'll speak your name.
Oh yeah.
right. It really is.
Oh, had you worked with Rob on like the his lines for that play? Did that help you in term like
A
did you have
little bit,
scenes with
yeah.
him and stuff?
Um, no, unfortunately, the character that I was playing didn't have any scenes with him. So,
Oh,
but
Mm.
that
I
would have
think
been
it helped sort
clutch.
of place the action in my mind so that I would know when I went off stage what was the thing that was next coming that I should
Hmm.
get ready for.
Hmm.
So that it helped in that way.
Man, that is one of the like most important things. Like when you get off stage, you have to know like where what's coming next.
Hmm.
And that's almost always what I have a cheat sheet of. Like as soon as I get off stage, like, okay, oh right. Next scene I need to be over on the other side, I need to
Yeah,
change or whatever.
Oh
I
my
will almost
gosh.
always have my script backstage with me. Not to like,
Yeah.
look at, just like
That's-
just in case I need to figure out where I am right now
Which
Exactly.
is
and what's
totally
next.
fair. Even if you just want to look at it, that's fair.
Security blanket.
I understudied someone who didn't get that at all. So she had written like her stuff down for me in the order of it, but
Mm.
nothing that happened in between. And
Oh.
so I was like, I wait, and I tried to like talk to her, like I figured it out for myself and I filled in the blanks, but when I tried to say like how it could have been helpful, she's not was not interested in hearing me say. She didn't want no feedback. But I thought, how weird, right? Like, and there are all kinds of things. Like maybe she wanted me to fail. I don't know who she thought she was dealing with, but it's just like weird. Like I had never experienced that before. Like, what do you mean? You're just like there are things that happen between the times that you're on stage, right?
Mhm.
Like, and if you're gonna take the time to write this out, like, anyway, y'all just reminded me of that. Like,
Yeah,
whatever,
a
screw
couple
her.
of understudies that I've been part of, they would have you follow backstage, like shadow
Hmm.
your person that you're understudying to see what it is that they do when they're not on stage
Hmm.
for, take turns among the understudies because you don't want a whole flock of understudies backstage all at the same
Right.
time. But I thought that
Hmm.
was really useful.
It's so useful. I love that. My direct experience was with the house theater. We used to do that, and we
Hmm.
would also sit. I don't know how many times I've said this on this show, but the principals and the stage manager would also sit and go through the script,
Hmm.
writing down literally everything we did. Right, so
Hmm.
they would get a sort of prompt script with those
Hmm.
details and shadow us.
Hmm.
And I thought that just felt so right, like let's
Hmm.
prepare this, especially like at the house that, those shows had a lot of moving parts a lot of the
Yes.
time. So I thought that was wonderful. And makes me happy to hear that other places did such a
Hmm.
thing.
Alana, did they work that like into the schedule?
Yep,
Oh, nice.
sure
That's
did. It
awesome.
was always part of it. Yeah,
That's great. I don't know if you have mentioned that before. Yeah.
feel like I have.
Okay.
We'll pretend that, you know, hopefully there are more and more people listening every time. So not everybody heard me
It sure
say it
did.
before.
True. Yeah.
Um, uh, Jean Marie, are there any shows that you feel like, because you have this incredible willingness and you love kind of the art and the craft, are there any shows you feel like, no way am I understudying that show?
Um, there was a show that I was cast as an understudy in, and I the part was so close to my heart, and um, that I said I can't be the understudy. I can't sit and watch someone else do
Hmm.
this part.
Mm.
Um, so I declined that offer.
Aw.
Wow.
I love
But
that you honored your heart though,
mhm,
right? Like, because in this game, everybody, we want the gig, we want the gig, we want
yeah,
it.
yeah, I know.
That's so important. I know it was hard, but like, I love that you
And you
took
start
care
to
of yourself in
worry,
that
you
way.
know, do I have a reputation now? Will I ever get cast with this theater company again? And I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I once read, it's really silly now because if I got this script now, like I'd be all over it. But I got a script for it was actually The Last Days of Judas Iscariot.
Mhm.
And at the time, it's the first time that I canceled an audition. Like I read that script and I was like, there's no way. And it was just, I didn't, I didn't connect. It didn't resonate. I couldn't wrap my mind around it.
Mm.
You know, like I have a religious background, sort of. Like I'm not that person anyway. But like in that moment, I was just like, oh no, I can't do it, right? And and eventually, I don't know if I saw that production of it, but I did eventually see it. And then also just like the growth I've experienced as a human. I'm just like,
Mhm.
I would eat that up now. Like, let me do The Last Days of Judas Iscariot. But it was such a weird, like at that point, you know, I had never had an audition schedule that I canceled,
Mm.
especially not to do a show. Later, I had to cancel an audition because I did take a show that would have conflicted,
Mhm.
right? Like that made sense.
Mhm.
Let's not waste time. But I didn't have, I was just like, I cannot see myself doing that. I'm out. It's so ridiculous. But again, I honored whatever that was I thought I was feeling at that time,
Mhm.
right? So I
Yeah.
wasn't mad about it. I didn't tell the theater like I just canceled the audition. And I actually didn't get called in for that theater again for probably 10 years. And I
Mm.
have no idea if that was the reason or not. You know, I don't know. I can't imagine them being like, "Oh, she canceled this one time, never call her in again." But you when we do this, that's the only thing we have, right? So you're
Mhm.
like, clearly they didn't like me because I canceled that one time. Yeah. But I totally do that play today. I don't know what that girl was thinking.
Yeah. There's a really great book by the he was a Catholic priest, James Martin. He's
Mhm.
he was the like theological advisor on that production, the
Mm,
original production,
hmm.
which was directed by Philip Seymour Hoffman. Sam Rockwell was also in it, and
Ah.
some other really great actors. And but the book kind of talks about the process of that play, and Sam Rockwell was playing Judas,
Mm,
and Judas has like not a lot of lines in that play, but it's very like heavy for that character, obviously. Um,
yeah.
and yeah, I highly recommend that book. That's all I really have to
What's the
say
book
about that.
called?
Oh, it's
Like,
called A Jesuit Off Broadway.
okay. Thank you.
That's important, isn't it?
Yes.
But no, really, that book, it just, and I mean, also coming from a Catholic or raised Catholic perspective, that was very inspirational to me doing theater.
I
Anyway,
I have a different difficult understudy story to tell.
yes.
I was understudying at Victory Gardens, and the character I was understudying had to speak quite a bit of Italian,
Mm.
actual Italian, not Italian
Oh.
accent, actual Italian.
Ooh.
And that was really tough, especially during understudy rehearsals. I would always be tripping over that Italian. And
Uh,
I felt bad for the other actors on stage because I would ruin the flow of whatever was going on.
Yeah.
Um, but they were all very kind, and luckily I never had to go on.
uh,
So,
Oh, that would be terrifying for me. I'm like, I finally succeeded at performing with an accent, which when my audition went well, I was like crying happy, right? Because I don't do it.
mhm,
And that particular, you didn't even have to audition with the accent, but I couldn't find the character's voice because I was happy to not do the accent, but I could tell, right? Like this, like I'm not even for the audition preparation, I'm like, I'm not telling her story. I'm gonna have to. So I did some stuff and it definitely started to click. But I was still like, I don't really know what I sound like, you know, like this is weird. But I go to the audition, and succeeded enough for me to feel like I had done it. And then I got a call back, but this show, I didn't get that show, but the next show, because it was Eclipse, they do the same play, right? They used
Hmm.
to do the same play. So the next show, which still had an accent, and I did it, and I still had to like tweak. We had a great coach, and I had to tweak during the process. Even during the run, there were still some things that were coming out weird, but I worked, but still like the confidence to do
Mm-hmm.
it and like
Hmm.
to actually like try, and then do it in the audition and still like it was just like one of them little like super like while small seeming, it was a victory. Like it's a huge win for me because I have
Hmm.
and I went right back to not having much confidence in accents, but it's like, okay, I know if I have to do it, I have it.
Hmm.
Um, which is not anything I thought prior to that. I was just like, I don't do accents, it's whatever. I can make funny voices though, you know.
Well, the really scary part about that particular show was it also had um, the script in above the stage
Mm.
and translating the Italian part and also the regular lines too. But so it was like if I had to go on and I got it wrong, and someone in the audience spoke Italian, they would know.
Yes.
They
Oh,
would definitely know.
that is terrifying. Jean Marie, okay, so you got an education in theater. Did you act as a young person? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
okay. What do
It
you, how
it all started in the fifth and sixth grade. I was in what they called an accelerated classroom. So
Mhm.
we were doing extra stuff that you wouldn't necessarily do in elementary school. And the teacher gave everyone in the class a poem on a Monday, and you had to perform it for the class on a Friday every week.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I think that was the start of like really enjoying that kind of challenge and enjoying performing.
Mm.
Yeah. Do you remember a thing that occurred as you aged and you continued to do it that made you say, so essentially like your aha moment, right? So you had it, you were enjoying it, you had these little teasers, but
Mhm.
at some point you were like, boom, this is what I'm gonna do. Do you remember like something that launched you into understanding that you could do it as a career?
Hmm. I tell this story about that particular situation where we would learn a poem. And one week I got assigned uh, a sonnet, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? That one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I worked on it. And then prior to us performing for the class, the teacher would always like take us off to a little sort of curtained area so that we could work with him on it and give us advice or whatever. And so we were doing that with that particular poem. And when I was done, I looked over at him. And the way I remember it, I saw tears in his eyes. And that was like straight to my heart
Mm.
that, wow, I can do that. I can share an emotion. I can create an emotion in someone else. And that just felt really amazing.
Mm.
So even though it wasn't being in a play, it was performing
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
heightened kind of language that you wouldn't necessarily think a fifth grader would be interested in.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Actually, Jean Marie, real quick before we get into that, were there any other understudy performances that you like were like, oh, I gotta talk about this one?
um, there was one of the first times I was an understudy and had to perform, but I
Mm.
knew in advance I was going to perform. Um, but right before opening, I had negotiated with the director that I could be out of town for a couple of weeks because my husband had just had hip surgery and we wanted to do something to sort of celebrate his new mobility. So we had planned this trip to Morocco. So I was in Morocco in a riad with my script and my husband, like, doing lines every evening through this trip.
Oh,
Oh.
wow.
And then when I came back, I had my put in rehearsal. The person I was understudying brought put in pie for us. several different
That's
kinds of
so
Pudding
pie.
pie.
cute.
I this is my first, put-in rehearsal, and I was like, oh, this must be a tradition. I'm going to look
Uh,
forward to this, and it never
yeah.
happened again.
The famous pudding pie. Yeah, of course.
Right.
But I haven't the dates I was going on were like the second and third performance, like right after opening night. So I actually got reviewed in
Oh,
a couple of the suburban papers because that
Oh,
was the night they saw the show.
yeah.
And the lucky thing about being in that show was that I was playing a character who was blind.
mm.
Mm.
So I didn't have a lot of blocking to learn. It was
Hmm.
basically come in, sit down in the chair, or take your little cane and go to the bathroom and come back. Um,
Yeah.
but the interesting part, the challenging part, was not focusing on anyone
Mm.
while
Oh,
you were on
yeah.
stage. Yeah, I had to keep that sort of like blank, far distance kind of focus and not
Mhm.
actually look like I was looking at anyone. And that
Right.
was a
Yeah.
little bit challenging, especially with the lights coming at you and you're trying to
Mhm.
like look into the distance and the light is hitting you right in the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that was my first understudy performing experience.
Mm.
Oh. Oh, nice.
Nice. Yeah, awesome. Cool. All right. We will be back with more Jean Marie Koon right after this. Hey, thank you so much for listening. We want to continue bringing you new stories of understudy triumphs and stumbles. So if you want to support our mission, it would mean a whole lot if you joined our Patreon at patreon.com/understudypod. You're on in five. We're back with Jean Marie Koon, and now it's time for the breakdown.
All right, Jean Marie. So we have our question of the week, and we have historically made them specific to theater. But you know what? We want to honor our humanity. And so we're kind of changing it up a bit. Now you can answer however you like. It could be related to theater or not. But our question for you is, how are you tending to self-care?
Good question. Self-care. I kind of am doing um, some of the things I've always done, like getting to the gym and eating well and those kind of things. Um, I've gotten into some other self-care ways of being uh, through my health journey the last couple of years. So I had cancer, still have cancer, um, and some of the things I started doing to get through the treatments, like going to acupuncture and having ways to like boost your immune system through the things that she could do with your meridians and all that kind of stuff. I'd never tried acupuncture before, and I started doing that. Also, just getting enough sleep and finding joy where I can.
Mhm.
A lot of that comes from theater, from going to see shows, from being around other actors and other creative people, from being in shows. For instance, you mentioned at the top that I was recently in a production of Uncle Vanya, and that was just such a dream situation for me. Um, I could have done that show forever and been very happy about it. So that kind of community that you find in the theater community,
Mhm.
um, comradeship, support, creativity, that's kind of like what's going to keep me sane over the next however long this situation lasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that,
truly. Yeah.
Jean Marie. Like and I think it's really great for people to hear the perspective and the value of joy, which is
Hmm.
huge. I don't even remember where it's sort of taken a turn for me to really emphasize joy and the necessity of joy. And like I'm aware that I've always carried it, right? Like I like that's like, but I hadn't over my lifetime, I didn't really articulate it that way. It's like, like I'm
Mm.
all about humor, and it's not, my humor doesn't mask because I'm also very straightforward with how I feel or whatever, what I'm thinking. But this essence of just like grabbing on to whatever causes it, right? So like I find, a piece of candy, a piece of good chocolate in my desk that I forgot was there. And now like my day is brightened that much more, and that's a representation of joy, how I have decorated and arranged my apartment. Like I've done it with this joy. And so in recent years, I speak of joy a lot. And I try to help people like realize that it can be there. Like it's not always connected to some major event or whatever. So, and I think it helps for like 'cause when our mental health is in a good place, our physical health usually follows to some
Hmm.
extent. Um,
And vice versa.
yeah,
Hmm.
Yeah.
absolutely. More specifically, for me to answer the question is I'm finally back into cooking regularly.
Oh.
I was like the meal prep queen, right? Like and like being really creative and like this was like, while I was still like actively acting, and so it was so awesome. I loved it, loved it, loved it. And then I fell out of it real like way out, like I was barely cooking at all, and I started getting mail order meals, which were fine. They were supposedly healthy or whatever, but in like the last quarter of 24, I just like once a week or so I would start to cook again. And like once I found myself like really getting my mojo back, I canceled the meal service plan. And
Mm.
like I've been feeding myself with my in my home for several weeks, well, for all of 2025 so far. And I just like it. I really did miss it. And it was frustrating to not do it.
Mm.
And so, among many other ways that I try to take care of myself, that's been very exciting to be back to.
Yeah, I really enjoy being in the kitchen and making food too.
Yes,
It's
it's so good.
I hardly ever follow a recipe exactly,
Mm.
Same. In fact, all right,
but
so
so it's a little bit creative too.
I was talking to this person and they were like telling me what a good cook they are and like how people respond to their cooking and like all of this. And then this person tells me that they like follow recipe like they get like boxed like I was just like I tried so hard, y'all, not to like let my judging come out to their face because I was like that's not impressive.
But
Especially with like the baking stuff, because this person like cooks and bakes or whatever. So like I don't know. Even when I look to a recipe, it's always just for me to get like the baseline, right? Like I
Hmm.
don't even know the last time I like followed a recipe to the letter. And I don't bake, but like if I made a cake, a box cake, I would not be bragging about how much people enjoyed that. Like I didn't even have to do nothing but mix it up and cook. Like it was so weird to me because I thought the way they talked about it, I thought they were like kind of cooking. And like, oh, this is box of whatever. So I mean, which is great. I'm not knocking that. It's just the way that they talked about being such a good cook that I thought
Hmm.
that they did have like their own kind of creativity and were baking from scratch and etc. So please, listeners, don't think that I don't think you can be a good cook if you use recipes and boxes.
uh,
That's
uh, uh.
not what I mean. Okay. All right, then I guess it's time for props.
And in props, we like to give shouts out to any understudies that we've worked with, any overstudies that we've worked with, any assistant directors or stage managers who have helped us do our best in understudy performances. So, Jean Marie, who do you have for us?
Spencer Huffman was the person who directed Uncle Vanya, and he came into the first rehearsal so prepared.
Mm.
He had an entire binder with like tidbits of history that would come into play, stuff about Chekhov himself, stuff about the culture of the time and whatnot. It was just really impressive. And it really helped ground all of us. Because we were all in the room together, hearing all these same things and thinking about, well, how would that affect the character that I'm playing?
Yeah.
And gave us a really good, strong base to work from.
Mm.
And then he had such a light touch, directing, totally willing to like hear back from us things that we might like to try or things that he had suggested that maybe didn't feel right. So it was really a lovely experience. And I'm going to see the show of his that's at Bramble Theater tonight called Race Car, Race Car, Race Car. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. In terms of stage managers, there's two that I'd like to mention. Sam Phillips is an amazing young lady. I was in a understudying a production that was at the Edge Theater. It was the big theater, lots of moving parts, projections, music, super titles, costume. It was a huge, huge thing. And a director who was really a perfectionist and would not move on from a single beat in tech rehearsal until it was perfect.
Mm.
So she had so much patience and she kept all of us so together and feeling like she had things under control, um, even when it didn't feel like that when we were actually in rehearsal or on stage. She was just amazing. And then I got to work with her again just recently at Trapdoor Theater. It was one of their Trap Open series. So it was a small production, only played for 3 weekends. But again, she was just so together, so on top of everything, made sure everybody was, getting what they needed. And it was just, I was so happy to work with her a second time. And I think that's the only stage manager I've ever worked with twice.
Oh, wow.
So it was a really nice thing to see her name on the contact sheet when we first got her. So, oh, yay, Sam.
Who was the other? Did you say you had another
Yeah, I'm going back to Uncle Vanya again. Anna Vu was our stage manager for that, and she was totally together. She she walked into tech rehearsal having blocked out all of the who would do what during the set changes, who
Mm.
would move what where, and that was made everything so easy. And she
Yes.
didn't have a lot of, technical bells and whistles to work with because we were performing in an actual factory, like a working factory where they would be in there making machine parts during the day. So there was only so much we could do set and light wise, but she made it all sort of flow together just right.
Mm.
Oh, and one more, the understudy for that production. Maddie Hudson. She was understudying both Sophie and Yelena, so the two really large women's parts. And she knew she was never going to go on, but she was at every rehearsal that she could be.
Mm.
She was at every performance, like helping out at the front of house or doing whatever needed to be done. And she didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
She would, the director said to us one day after a preview, you know, I see her mouthing everyone's lines
Mm.
when she's watching the show. So I know she's got it. And that was a lot of work for her to take on with, very little um, remuneration in terms of being able to be on stage. But it was a pleasure just to have her in the room, which is one of the things that I like to do when I'm an understudy, is just be a helpful, good feeling presence in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah, vibes. Vibes are so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One fun thing about working there is there were a lot of offices for the, front of office people for the
Mhm.
factory.
Mhm.
And we each got our own office for our dressing
Oh,
room.
nice.
Fancy.
Private.
Look at you. I love that.
And mine had a sofa in it, so I could sit and put my feet
Oh,
up in between scenes.
oh, nice.
Spoiled.
Yeah.
Very, very flush.
That's awesome. I bet where's that located, Jean Marie?
It's on the north side, like at a little bit north of Foster on Damon.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
They did a previous production there, the same group. It was a Carol Churchill
Yeah,
play.
oh yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I was just saying.
That's
Like if it
when you
was
said
that.
in a factory, I think that was the same one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I kind of remember I remember the industrial-ish neighborhood, but I
Hmm.
couldn't place it in my mind just now.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when you said the offices, I remember like when we come in, there are
Hmm.
offices right there.
Hmm.
Ah,
oh.
yeah. Was it so would that Carol Churchill have been that same company?
Same company. Yeah.
Okay. I don't even remember how I ended up there, but I saw that. I love Carol Churchill,
Mm.
and I loved though that production. I
Hmm.
don't know. I'm sure I wasn't just wandering the street and stumbling into
Well, they
like.
got somehow they managed to get Chris Jones to come see it, and he wrote a really nice review for them in the Time in the Tribune.
Tribune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Well,
also had
that's
an
nice.
article about them put in the New York Times because they were doing a piece on theater in non-traditional spaces,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
somehow they got mentioned in that. So it was a big deal. I'm sure that's maybe you heard about it through one of those venues.
I wish I could claim to read such things on the regular.
Uh,
Um, so before we close out,
Mhm.
Scott likes to ask one more question. Go ahead, Scott.
is that you? That's you teeing me up. Um, our final question is, what is something that you would either tell your younger self when you were starting out, or something that you would tell somebody who is starting out now, that you've learned from your time as an actor?
Do as many different kinds of theater as you can.
Mm,
Don't tell yourself like I still do tell myself I can't do devised theater. That's like way out there kind of stuff. I'm not that creative, or I'm not that
mm,
um, unself-conscious that I would put myself in a position like that. Um, but there's really nothing you shouldn't at least try
yeah.
in order to build your experience as an actor and or an understudy. I've been in shows, a lot of new plays. I've been in some real old school plays like Shakespeare and some of the classics. But the sort of niche things have been some of the most fulfilling things that I've
Mm,
done that I wouldn't necessarily think I would be good at, but it doesn't hurt to try.
yeah.
And you'll learn something about yourself, and you'll have a chance to actually really stretch those muscles of being someone else, having a different attitude or a different perspective on some of the things that happen to you in your own life.
Mm,
So yeah, just try everything.
yeah. Awesome. I don't think we've gotten that
Nope, we
uh
haven't. It's just
before.
so exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jean Marie. It was a delight to have you on.
Yes,
Well,
thank
thank you. It was really fun to chat with you too.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation today with Jean Marie Koon and that it gives you deeper insight into the art of understudying.
you. To send us a question or give us a suggestion of someone we should interview, email us at understudypodcast@gmail.com.
Or hit us up at Understudy Pod on Facebook and Instagram. Blue Sky.
We want to thank all our Patreon subscribers, especially Marcella Huff and Stanley Sava.
If you want to support the show, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/understudypod.
Our theme song and all other music are by Laura McKenzie.
Our episodes are edited by Scott and produced by me and Scott.
Thank you so much for listening. If you liked it, please hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice and tell your friends.
If you hated it, tell your enemies.
And their parents.
Their stupid parents.
Bye.
Bye.